Here's a sneak peek from this week's episode.
Yeah, every time we fly over, whether it's on the seaplane or whether it's in the big plane, I just love looking at the little jewels that are down there that are dotted about, which is the Maldives.
I'm Scott.
And I'm Melissa.
And we are the Sunshine Travelers. Our passion is travel and sharing our experiences with those who enjoy it as much as we do, or those who want to learn more about travel, or even those who just want to live vicariously through our travel stories. No matter where you fall along that journey, get ready to hear about our firsthand experiences as we visit some of the most interesting and amazing places on Earth. This week, we're embarking on an exciting adventure to the island nation of the Maldives. The Maldives is one of the world's top recreational diving destinations. We'll be talking to some friends who have just returned from their 6th visit to learn more about their favorite places to stay and why they love this location so much. During our journey, we'll discover where the Maldives are located and what we should expect when we arrive. So grab your passport, comfortable clothes for the long plane ride, and a couple of bathing suits, and let's dive into this amazing destination. Melissa, the Maldives is a place that's been on our bucket list for a few years after hearing our friends Ali and Shep talk about how much they love this place.
One of the challenges is that the Maldives is so far away from where we live. It's not something that we could ever do on a short trip.
Do you know what the Maldives means?
I have no idea.
Well, it's the island of male. I learned that in our show prep. But I don't think it's actually talking about gender. The capital of the Maldives is actually Malay. So it's really not the island of male. It's the island of Malay.
So today we're going to use this as a jumping off point to start our exploration and getting some plans underway for a future trip, and also to inspire you to visit the Maldives and help you start planning your trip. So let's get started on the interview, and then we're going to come back with some additional thoughts afterwards.
So we're joined today with a couple of good friends of ours, Ali and Shep, and we're going to talk about the Maldives. Maldives are a place that has been on Melissa and I's bucket list for quite some time. And I think, I'm not certain, but I believe it might have gotten there because of Ali talking about your trips to it. So anyhow, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
How many times have you guys been to the Maldives? What drove you, your interest into the Maldives? Kind of, where did that start?
So we've been to the Maldives 6 times, and I think what drives it is, first of all, we live in the UK, so we need to go somewhere to get winter sun. And obviously that's the right part of the world to go to, where near the equator, they've got summer all the time. So yeah, it started with the winter sun thing. And then, yeah, I guess it's just for me, who does actually do all the research and the booking of the holidays. It's about the ultimate sort of luxury in my mind. The Maldives gives you the blue sea and the whitest sand and just that sort of relaxing luxury, ultimate luxury, I guess.
Shep, I love that you nodded a while ago when you said, she does all the research and booking and you just kind of show up and go.
I pay my way as well. So
I feel like that's kind of our relationship most of the time too, is Melissa's the one who does all of the research and booking for the most part. And I always call myself the tourist on the trip.
But it's really important. I can't stress how much value the research delivers, because there are hundreds of resorts across the Maldives, because it's a sort of a very long country made up of hundreds of islands. And each resort, although you think it's luxurious, because it always looks fantastic, they have slight nuances in terms of 5-star versus 4-star, how you get there. We'll talk about that later, whether it's by sea or by air. And the service element of the Maldives is one of the most critical aspects of its attraction. We most recently heard of some people coming back from their honeymoon disappointed because of the resort and the service. And for us, that's like, what? How can that be? And I think it comes down to Ali's phenomenal ability to research and find the right place.
And so when you've gone, have you stayed gone to different places, stayed at different places? Is that what you
Yeah, so we've been to the same place. The first place we went back, and then the second place we went back, and then fifth and sixth we've been to different places.
Okay. And so what drove you, I guess, to go back to those places? And then what made you decide, okay, we want to see something different or go somewhere different?
It really was the people and the service. The service is so good in the places that we've been. They genuinely do make a real effort to, be your friend over that period of time that you're on holiday there. They get to know you. We had that definitely in the first place with a guy called Reef. I still remember his name, just really looked after us, really got to know us, got to know, what we liked, what we didn't like. And it just really, steps up that level of service, and you feel special. You feel like you're being treated really specially, and that's important. So yeah, we really loved those. We loved him. We loved the service. So we went back there. And then again, we went to another place and they really looked after us. We had Tattinger when no one else was having Tattinger. And again, we loved it. And we went back and then, I guess the first place we went was a place called Constant Mufushi. And that was probably entry level. So entry level for us, obviously, since we've been back, we've kind of progressed. We didn't have a pool at that one. And we actually now when we go, we always like to have a villa over the water with a pool. Because again, it's the ultimate in luxury and privacy. So yeah, we didn't have that. So we've,
but the nice thing about not just the waiting staff, but the chefs get to know what you like to eat. So they greet you in the morning. If you like your omelette in a particular way, they'll remember, and they'll, those small things about the attention to detail make you feel really good, and they make you feel special. They have this incredible service culture that makes you feel that you are special, even though they must have, hundreds of people throughout the year. They make an effort to know your name early doors and remember your name and use it frequently. And, for example, if you go for a sunset cocktail, they'll ask you, oh, do you want the same as you had last night? Or do you want something different? And so it's that higher level of individual service, which is so special.
We talked about that recently. At the end of the year, we went on a cruise, and the staff that was on the cruise ship, like we said, they could work at any 5-star restaurant in the world because they were really good at that attention to detail and using your name and remembering, what you ordered and really catering towards you and every need that you had. And so I agree with you. I think that makes a trip just phenomenal.
For sure. Yeah. And we even talk about that. It's nice even when you get that at home, which is rare, but it's nice to go into a place and they at least act like they recognize you, or
we don't get that.
Don't like something in particular. Yeah. I mean, we don't get that much, but it's like, it makes you really do feel special. And so especially on a vacation where you've really made an investment. And so so most of these places then are going to be all inclusive types, right? Just because of the way. No. Okay.
But you have to hunt for an all inclusive and you pay through the nose. Okay. Typically, they try and get you into a half board scenario, which for us doesn't really work well because it's breakfast and dinner. So we like to go all inclusive because we don't like the ag of having to be mindful of what we're spending at every meal. But actually, all inclusive isn't that easy to come by in the Maldives. And it tends to be more of a half board basis.
Okay. And so then when you then for lunch or whatever, is it still at the resort or there you go somewhere else?
Oh no, you can't.
Okay. So everything is right. Everything is you're at the resort. So it's just a matter of what's paid for ahead of time versus.
Although we did stay at a resort this time where they had an underwater restaurant and guests from other close islands would come in on a boat to go to that restaurant, but that's the first time that we've seen that happening. It is pretty much, you're on the resort and that's where you pretty much stay for the duration.
Okay.
So you've talked about a few resorts that you guys have been to. Do you mind sharing, like, what's the name of those resorts? Because often people who are listening to this will want to go back and then do their research and try to find some of these.
So we went to Constance Mufushi. That was our first one. And then we went to Ozen, which has a variety of different resorts. Ours was...
It's called Ozen by Atmosphere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't remember the name of the island itself, but
no, I can't either.
Okay, and we can get that from you, and then maybe just link it. Like, you know, I can get.
And then we went to a place called Amila Fushi, and then our last one was a place called Hurawali.
Okay, and out of those, do you have a favorite?
Hurawali was
okay. So the last
was
one
my favorite.
You mentioned, like, you've kind of like, you know, you've been several times, so you kind of knew, like, okay, next time we want this, and this is what I'm looking for, and so okay. I mean, then that's good, right? Because you don't want to, it's hard when you go to a place and you're just like, oh, I really wish it had been more like this. So
yeah, better to go up than to sort of regress. Yes, definitely.
For sure.
So one of the reasons why Ali liked it significantly was it was an adults only resort. So other resorts have children, which again, given the sort of restriction on activities and the sun is clearly quite hot most of the time. I think it's a strange place to take very small children, but people do, and you know they have a great time. But this particular resort, adults only, it was the first adults only resort we've been to, and it just felt that much more calm,
chill,
I guess, and chilled. Yeah,
and we generally prefer that as well. You know, obviously, if you're taking kids with you, you need to stay in a family resort. But when it's just the two of us and we want to relax and whatever, you don't want just a bunch of chaos around you all the time. And
most Maldives resorts are family. They are sort of directed as family resorts. So you have to hunt a bit to find either an adults only, or sometimes they do. I think Ozen did no one under, it was either 12 or 15. I think it was 12. So yeah, but they're not easy to find. Like I had the impression that it wasn't adults, a couples type place. But when I started looking, I realized that no, a lot of the resorts are kind of marketing themselves as family resorts.
You know, one of the things I just realized is we might ought to just even take a step back and talk about where are the Maldives. So, you know, from someone sitting in North America, it's not one of those places that everyone talks about going to.
Well, where we were there, actually, we did sunrise yoga with a young lady from Atlanta.
Oh.
She was on her honeymoon, and I was like, wow, you're from America. Like, we don't normally, see people from America in the Maldives because it's so far away. And she said, yeah, we were on our honeymoon, and we were like, what's the furthest place away we could possibly go? And the answer was the Maldives. So yeah, the Maldives is Southeast Asia, just off the kind of southern point of Sri Lanka. And as Shep said, it's kind of like two lines of atolls, which in effect are the peaks of, mountain range now buried by the sea. And they are at risk of being, consumed by the sea. So, yeah.
And was, as we learned this time, was a British protectorate up until 1956. So there was an RAF base there, what used to be one of the sort of principal islands. And one of the nice things for us, probably not so much for the Americans, is that they drive on the left-hand side of the road and they use our 3-pin plugs, their electricity supply. So that's quite nice. It's a bit home from home in that regard.
Well, we talk about that in some of our travels, is especially if you're traveling for like a first time, like going somewhere that has some familiarity is great, right? Because you're not just in a land that's totally upside down for you and everything is different. So do they speak English in the Maldives? Is that their...
100%. Yeah, they all speak English.
But that's not their native language.
Well, Maldivian is their native language, but they all speak English. What's really interesting is that the mix of guests they have tends to be Russian, British, German, Japanese, Chinese.
Yeah.
Those are the sort of 5 principal bunch of guests you seem to get. You get a lot of people going there for their honeymoons and so forth, or special anniversaries and birthdays. But we've often seen a lot of Russians at that time of year because it's the new year, because the new year in Russia is like the 6th of January type thing. So you get a lot of families celebrating at that time in the Maldives.
Okay. And that's a good point. So you guys have just recently come back from your trip this year. You had the similar time last year. Has all your trips have been right in January-ish, or?
All of our trips have been January, apart from last year, actually, which was March.
Okay.
So we went in March.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that is the best time to go. So really sort of December to April is their dry season. Obviously it's hot all the time, but in the other months is their sort of monsoon season. So still hot, but you can expect more sort of heavy downpours.
A bit like Florida, really.
Yeah, a bit like
in the summertime for sure.
Yeah.
The rain comes, but then it goes. To Ali's point, it stays fabulously warm. You get that refreshing air feel once you've had a storm.
So it wouldn't rain necessarily like all the time. They would get a storm and it would pass. And so if you chose to go in another season, okay.
and it can be raining over on one island and perfectly sunny where you are, and you can see the rain over there, but it's not touching you. So very much a microclimate situation by atoll.
So you're not saying like, unlike London, where it's just like gray and everything's gray.
exactly
Right. It's not blue in the distance where you're like, oh, maybe. Right. Okay.
No.
Yeah, we say in Florida, if you don't like the weather, just wait 5 minutes.
Yeah,
for sure.
And stuff.
And so then for you guys, so you typically would then fly London Heathrow, and then what does that look like? And then, what are recommendations for flights? And then we can talk about, I guess, like what that would look like for Americans then.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why I like the destination as well is because the flights work really well for us. So we fly out of Heathrow on a Friday night, overnight, you get to the Maldives in the morning, and then you basically get transported to your resort either by boat or by plane. And you basically get there for the time that your room is ready. So, early afternoon, like sort of lunchtime. So you can have a bit of lunch, your room is ready, good to go. And then when we come home, it is a day flight. So you leave the Maldives at like 11 o'clock in the morning, but we get home at like 7 o'clock at night, which means we can go straight to bed and get back into the time zone. So,
okay.
It is a long flight. It's 11 hours. From the UK. It is a direct flight. BA, we used to be the only ones flying that route, but now Virgin fly the route as well. And we did go with Virgin this time. But yeah, I can't imagine how you would get there from America.
Well, because that's interesting, because like you're describing is what we do when we come over, right? To the UK. That looks like maybe not quite, it's not quite as long of a flight. We're, from the East Coast, but that's kind of like our process. So yeah, I don't know. You would definitely have a stopover. Yeah. I'm not even sure which direction you would.
No, I'm not sure.
So
maybe this is the opportunity to go through Dubai.
Do some research, but we definitely would have to go and do some kind of, one leg and then, continue on for sure. It's
I'm pretty sure we saw Emirates flights.
A lot of people go via Dubai, and they do. Stop it or just have a layover and go to the Maldives. But yeah, we like to get it done in one hit.
Sure. Oh, even from the UK, people will do that. Yeah. Because if that's your destination, for sure. And then tell us, so then what is your typical, how long do you stay? And is that kind of ideal? What would you recommend people?
So ours always ends up being, because of those flights, we go on a Friday and we come back on a Monday typically. So that's a 9-night stay, which works really well for us, doesn't it? It's like, there's something really nice about that Friday, going on the Friday, being there on the Saturday and Sunday, when I'm a bit of a naughty person for looking at my phone and doing a bit of work and just sort of keeping on top of it. It's really nice to just get there and know that it's the weekend and you can totally sort of chill. But yeah, I think 7 nights would be too short for us, given the flight time, the distance. And 2 weeks, I'd go for 2 weeks, easy. But,
I would say you're extremely naughty and checking your phone, because I didn't realize you were in the Maldives. I sent you a text message and you responded. And so
that's worth mentioning as well. All the islands have pretty good Wi-Fi. So you are connected. I mean, the first...
You don't have to be there.
You don't have to be, clearly. But I remember when we arrived at Constance Mufushi and we stepped off, I think, was that a boat or a seaplane? It was a seaplane.
Seaplane.
We stepped off the seaplane and there's a little sign there saying, no shoes, no news. Like, take your shoes off, relax, feel the sand between your toes and switch those phones off because you don't need to know what's going on in the world. You're here to relax. And that stuck in my mind, that little sign.
Yeah. That's great advice. Yeah, for sure. For a vacation. Yeah.
So when you were a little bit about the food and the, when we were talking about all inclusive and stuff like that, but I guess, are there some places, that you guys would recommend, or if I'm hearing it correctly, it's all within the resort.
Correct.
So whatever you have in the resort, basically that's pretty much it for that, for that island.
So when you're in the resort, you can literally be, in your room, look out and see nothing, or you might see a distant, other atoll. That's pretty much what it's like. So I take a lot of care to look at the food. So when I make the decision about where we're going to go, the food is a massive part of it. We very much like to, have the Asian food, whether that's Maldivian curries. Shep's favorite food is probably curry. So we like to have the local food. And then the place where we just went, they had a really nice, I would say more, it's like Thai, Vietnamese, but again, like Asian. That was really nice. We tend to like that, don't we? We tend to like to try the local curries, the local food, but they're always doing, like, wherever we've been, one of the restaurants is always like an international buffet. So you can always get that. And then they have sort of side restaurants that will be an Indian or an Asian, sushi. There was a teppanyaki,
yes, there
wasn't there? So, they obviously know that they've got you captive. So they do this thing called a dine around where you have to book it, but you sort of rotate round all the options that you've got. And again, that will depend on your meal plan. So as all inclusive, we could go anywhere as long as we book it. If you're not on all inclusive, they limit you to probably just the international. You can go in that restaurant, but you can't go into the other restaurants. And again, that's individual per resort, but that's the sort of thing they do.
Okay. And there was an uplift for the underwater restaurant. Now, Ozen by Atmosphere had a 6-meter underwater restaurant, so we felt as though we didn't probably need to go to that again. But clearly, it's amazing when you can dine with the fishes type thing, just swimming around you. It's a phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
So interestingly, even though we were all inclusive, that was still an uplift.
Yeah, that was extra.
Whilst we were in the resort, if you wanted to do that.
And it was a big extra. So
okay.
we didn't do that.
So it would be, so you said you've done it. So, it's fine. Kind of check that box and then not do it again. So you would say, like international options, healthy options, and then they would cater to likes and dislikes or food needs, allergies, that kind of thing.
I think they're incredible in terms of, if you think of the multicultural guests that they have, there's always Japanese style food available at breakfast, lunch and dinner in the international restaurant. And they do their very best to cater for you. If there is something specific you want, the chefs are so helpful. I mean, we're almost on first name terms with the chefs because they're so great in the time you're there.
That's your remit.
That's my remit.
Yeah.
Food is important. Yeah. But they bend over backwards. If they can make it for you, they'll do it.
The other thing to mention as well, one of the reasons why I was attracted to a Miller, which is the one we went to last year, is it transpired the manager was interested in it, but they had keto menus, low carb menus. And so you could really think about, if you were doing that or interested in that, you could have those options as well. So I liked the idea of it. I don't think I did stay keto while I was there, but I thought it was a good thing to be able to
it's helpful.
People. Yeah.
It's helpful, even if you're not strict on something, not getting far off of whatever you're trying to accomplish. I think that's really helpful. So let's talk a little bit about like activities. I would assume that water sports are probably the main draw, the beach, the water sports, those type of activities.
So
Snorkeling.
every resort has, I mean, they give you pretty much snorkel and flippers, as a standard for you to go off your villa. So you can literally go down steps in your snorkel and your flippers and go straight into the ocean, and you're in amongst the Finding Nemo style fishes, which are bountiful. We saw for the first time, we saw probably more rays this time than we've seen before. So stingrays, eagle rays, manta rays are very common around the Maldives. Dolphins, you can go out on dolphin cruises they'll find the dolphin, because the dolphins are fairly sort of predictable in terms of where they go swimming. So you can go and see them.
Or that is a little bit like chasing dolphins, which I didn't love.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it was nice to see them, but you've got multiple boats trying to like chase these dolphins. So we did that once. But yeah, I wasn't a massive fan of chasing the dolphins.
But if you want to go beyond snorkeling, there are diving excursions daily. So depending on your level of interest in that type of stuff and how far, away you want to go, you can do that every day. And what happens there is they take you off into the deep water. So one of the fabulous things about the Maldives is you're on your atoll and you look out this crystal clear water for about 100 meters or so. And then it goes completely dark, because that's the ledge.
Okay.
Deep water is. And so a lot of divers go into that deeper water, and you've got far more chance there of seeing turtles and
mantas
and all sorts of fabulous creatures.
Yeah, and they do, they'll do an early snorkel, they'll do midday, they'll do nighttime diving as well. Like we didn't really get too involved in that. I prefer to lay on the water on my lilo than to be under it with the creatures. And we did, early doors when we went, like our first time, we did more snorkeling. We went on a trip, we went and did the
GoPro, get the video.
But yeah, we tend to just like to sort of, like Shep said, go off the back of our villa, have a little snorkel about, come back. I can still touch the bottom and I'm happy kind of doing that. But yeah, obviously you've got a lot of, if you like snorkeling and diving, then you couldn't be in a better place than the Maldives, I don't think.
And there are boats, there are little dinghies, there are catamarans, there are paddle boards, kayaks,
jet skis.
So all the, to your point, Scott, all the sort of water sport collateral that you would need is there. And generally, outside of the jet skis, it's all free of charge. So,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So some things are included, some things just depending, obviously, that would cost more and take, fuel and things like that. And then to book different excursions, like you work with the resort ahead of time, or you do it once you get there, or how do they?
While you're there.
Yeah, do it while you're there.
Okay.
We tend to have they call them hosts, don't they? So when you go, you get a host who is your butler in effect. Like, he gives you his WhatsApp number, and then anything that you need, you're like, right, can we have ice? Can we have some slices of lemon? And it's their job to sort of, make sure that you've got everything you need, and they're typically the people that will book your restaurants for you, and book any activities, excursions that you want to do.
So when you're planning a trip like this, your research then is heavily into where do we want to stay? What resort, food options, activities options fits the best? But then other than that, you're really just accommodations are fitting that. And you're booking that, you're booking your transportation to get there. And then there's not really anything else to worry about till you're there, which is nice for a lot of people.
The one thing that I didn't mention when we talked about getting there is, obviously we have our 11-hour flight, and then you have either you get on a boat to your resort or you get on a seaplane. Okay. And that is one of the kind of big decisions as well. It's like, which atoll is it I'm going to? I looked at one, I really liked the look of it. It was a 60-minute seaplane. So that was out. I think a 40-minute seaplane ride is the maximum that I would want to do. just because they are very small, they are very hot. And yes, it's amazing to fly over, the atolls, but I actually think that you get just as good a view when you're in the big aeroplane. Like, I've got some great photos of like when we've left the Maldives on our BA flight. I've got great pictures of the atolls. But yeah, being on the seaplane is definitely a thing you'd want to do at least once. I think my preference is the speedboat, but I won't compromise the resort just to be on a speedboat, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then what's that like time wise? What typically is that? Because obviously those are not going to be as far. Correct.
So the maximum you'll get on a boat transfer will be an hour. We've typically done 45 minutes. And whilst around the atolls, the sea is very calm, it isn't that calm when you're traveling from Mali to your island. It actually can be quite, it's not rough, but it's not
bumpy.
It's bumpy. If you don't like, if you have a tendency to be seasick or airsick, it's not like, I was surprised at how, bumpy that speedboat ride was, because clearly in my brain, I've got pictures of very calm sea, but that's because that's around the shallows in the atolls. Out in the deep sea, it's choppy-ish.
So that's a thing. Then people need to be prepared. Like, they're getting to the Maldives and you need that. Like, you need to be putting your patch on or taking your seasickness medicine or something like that if you have either the air or the small boat.
Yeah, for sure. I have to make sure that I'm sitting, facing forward and I've got view of the horizon. Otherwise I probably would throw up. So yeah, but your speedboat would be an hour tops. And then once you get past that, you're on a seaplane. I've not really seen like 15-minute seaplanes. They tend to be around 30, 40. So yeah, I guess that's the crossover.
Okay. Because it's got to be worth it, I guess, right? To have that mode of transportation instead of taking.
Sort of like when we went to Belize, right? The only way to get to that island was either a ferry or a sea, wasn't a seaplane, because they did have a very small airport on the island, but
a little.
Never done a seaplane. That sounds kind of interesting as well.
Oh, they're cool. They are so cool. I mean, they're 4 turboprops, 12 passengers with your luggage, clearly, and 2 pilots and just one guy at the back holding on to your luggage. And we always sit at the front, which is great. I always get the sort of just behind the pilot and the co-pilot's view. But it's a great experience.
Yeah, it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, when you're sitting next to someone and every bit of your skin is touching that person. I don't love that. I don't love it.
Even though it's me.
Yeah, even though it's you.
And that's because on those planes, you don't have an assigned seat. They adjust the plane for weight and stuff like that. And they usually do that at the time of boarding, right?
I don't think they do think that much.
No, they just throw you on. I mean,
yeah, they do throw you on. But we like to race to the front of everything. So we're always first off of the big plane, and then we're always first on the little plane. So we're not dawdling at the back. We're like, right, come on, let's get on.
Let's get started.
Let's try to see if we can get, we're on vacation. Let's see if we can get where we want. Yeah. He just mentioned that because that little plane to Belize, that was like, they were looking at everybody. I don't even think it was 12 and they were like, okay, you here, you here, you here, you here. Yeah. So.
And there were some, we didn't care, but there were some people like, no, we're together. And they're like, it doesn't matter. We're balancing the plane.
Yeah. Right? Do you want to get there?
It's 15 minutes. Like, you can sit next to anybody for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's good. But that's great. I mean, because that's neat, because then that's like, you almost like from the get go, like you have an experience that you may not have had, right? A seaplane. So that's cool too. So
I guess just, before we wrap up, we did want to ask you, like, for each of you, do you have maybe a memorable experience or something like that from your trips to the Maldives that really just stands out in your mind?
The first thing for me is when you are in the sky and you look down and you see this crystal clear water and these little atolls with these little beach villas that are spanning out, it's the most incredible thing, because we've never seen anything like that before. And it just looks so idyllic, so peaceful, so fabulous. That's my first and abiding recollection, because it's just so impressionable.
Can I just say, you talk a lot of shit.
You're not allowed to swear.
They'll cut that bit out.
Yeah, but then people won't listen.
I'm not cutting that out. I'm leaving that one in.
My version of that is when you fly over, like for me, when you fly over those, they're like gems, like seeing those gems with the most bluest blue and just the colors, like they're my colors, and they're so vibrant. And yeah, every time we fly over, whether it's on the seaplane or whether it's in the big plane, I just love looking at the little jewels that are down there that are dotted about, which is the Maldives.
Nice. And do you need to be on a certain side? Because you mentioned taking pictures of like when you're going there. Do you need to be on a certain side of the plane, like flying in, or both sides? Either would be fun. Just
Either
get a window seat.
You just need
Just don't be on the wing.
Cloudy. Yeah.
Don't be on the wing, get a window seat and hope for not cloudy.
Yeah.
And I think when you get the opportunity to do your first snorkel, and it is literally like you're in Finding Nemo, the movie, because the fish are so vibrant, they're so colourful. Again, you sort of just spellbound. Literally, you can be looking into the water from your villa and you can't necessarily see them, and you'll see a few. But the minute you enter the water, they're there everywhere. It's incredible. Ali saw her first turtle in the water this year from outside.
Yeah.
First time we've ever seen one, which was fantastic. But she's always looking and talking to reef sharks, taking photographs, which you might have seen on Instagram. And the rays we saw this time were so close to the shore. They're incredible creatures. I mean, difficult to describe because they're not an everyday occurrence.
Yeah, you guys need to go to St. John with us in the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You would get plenty of opportunity to swim with the turtles, and it's just, same thing, crystal clear water.
The turtles are some of, my absolute favorite. You can tell we do enjoy snorkeling a lot. Like It's just, for us, it's like relaxing. Like you're doing something, you're a little bit active, but you can relax, right? When you're in a place where you're not worrying about currents and different things like that. And you're just watching the animals just go about their business.
Yeah, I do quite worry when I'm snorkeling. I don't like the water that much, but yeah.
But it's nice. So for people who don't care anything about any of those activities, it's a great place to literally just go relax. You have a view, you have every need is being met, and then you can just have your private pool, and then you just literally can just decompress. And
we should also mention every resort generally has a spa, so you can have a massage. I mean, we tend to get about 3 massages while we're there in the week. One particularly when we first get off that flight. Mm-hmm. So the spa treatments are normally fantastic. This resort, interestingly, had a paddle tennis court and a tennis court and a 5-a-side football pitch. And there's always a volleyball court on the beach. And we've been to a lot of resorts because it's so hot. We never see anybody playing volleyball on the beach, but we did see people playing tennis and paddle tennis, which is great. Oh, and one resort we had last year, Miller had bicycles. So we used to cycle around the island before breakfast. So that was quite nice, just to cut down on the amount of walking we had to do from our villa to the restaurant.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So you can be as active or not as active. You mentioned yoga. I'm sure they have other fitness type facilities. Yeah, most of them, right? Well, if that's important to you, making sure they have a fitness.
Yes. Or again, one of the other things we need to we like to make sure they've got is a decent gym. So yes, we do like to feel like we've not just totally slopped about the whole time. If we get up, go to the gym, then we're like, right, now we can eat loads.
But there's normally sunrise yoga, sunset yoga. We did Pilates while we were there this time, and we
did aqua aerobics, and it was just me and him. So yeah, it was
tough.
Well, but it was nice just to for an hour we just splashed about and moved for a bit instead of there's a lot of laying around reading books. So yeah, it just makes you feel like you've done a little bit of something, a little bit of activity.
Awesome.
Anything else that we haven't asked you that we need to know about the Maldives?
I think, it should be a place everyone gets the opportunity to go to. But I think, because it's so far away, a lot of people never make it. Because it is quite a commitment to get on a plane for that length of time. But Ali calls it her spiritual home. I wasn't allowed to say that, but I'm saying it anyway. So I figure we're going to be going there quite a lot in the future.
Well, no,
I get it. I mean, there's certain places that you really connect to, and I understand that totally.
we've said we're not going to go for a while, but I've definitely said we're definitely going for my 50th, because we went this year and we were there for Shep's 60th. So I definitely want to be there for my 50th. But yeah, the plan is to give the Maldives a bit of a rest, and to go to some other places in the winter, obviously, because again, the main priority for us is winter sun. January in the UK is a very depressing time.
I think
you need that vitamin D. And I think that's common. That's common, in the US too, for especially people who are get a lot of snow and have a lot of gray weather for sure. So,
well, I think that just leads perfectly into the, kind of our closing questions. These are questions that we ask all of our guests on the show. The first one is, what is your favorite place that you've ever visited?
Mine would be the Maldives.
I was kind of figured that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm probably going to have to go with that as well. We've been to Mauritius and we did a safari, which was a close second because of the animals that we saw. It's fantastic. But the Maldives is just so special, and it's special every time. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to go Maldives.
I thought you'd go somewhere different. But...
Well, then what are the top spots on your bucket list? So the places you haven't been to yet, but they're on your list.
So we want to go to Costa Rica.
Oh, nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's we have an episode coming up on Costa Rica.
But
we're going to be interviewing a former colleague of mine who's from Costa Rica, and she's going to tell us everything you need to know about visiting Costa Rica. So that should be coming up in the next few weeks, hopefully.
We'll have to listen to that.
And the other one is, the Cape Town garden route, wine route, all that bit. But I've started researching that. It's quite overwhelming, actually, because you can do a hell of a lot down in that area. So it's just I'm sort of on my first draft of research, just really looking at, what are the options there. So yeah, those are the two that we're looking at the moment.
And the areas we're not allowed to look at, where I'd like to go, are Cuba. I'm very keen to go to Cuba. Ali is less keen, but hey, I'll make it there one day. I also would like to go to Patagonia, but again, that's a long way away. And Machu Picchu. I've got to say Machu Picchu because I do like a slightly active holiday from time to time, just to sort of contrast with what we do in the Maldives.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We won't be going to any of those anytime soon because she's in charge of booking.
Well, we said Cape Town and Costa Rica is our next option.
We did. I can't see Cuba.
No, Cuba.
And then once you check those off, yeah. Well, and like you mentioned, those are very different, right? Cuba would be a very different historical experience, and stuff too. And then your other one's very active, obviously.
I don't think it's about history. It's about cigars, Melissa.
Okay. There you go.
But you'll have to take your own Blantons because I don't think they have any Blantons in Cuba. And then, of course, the last question is, and maybe that is your next, but do you have somewhere else planned that you're going next?
We've got nothing booked, but yes, it will be one of those two, I think. I think it's going to be South Africa in maybe February, actually.
And so that's very... a little more straightforward for you guys, for you guys to go there. And then obviously the time difference, you don't have as much, right?
It's
as
a
far
2
as
hour.
lag, what is it for
2 hours?
a couple hours? Okay.
But I still think must still be a similar
flight. It's a 7-hour flight.
Oh, 7.
Okay. Yeah. But for us, to go to South Africa, we're having to come your direction, right? And then going south typically, I think, something like that. So yeah, so very different.
You might make it before us, so we'll have to pick your brains as part of the research.
So you're looking at next year, possibly. Is that what you're saying? February of next.
Yeah,
next year.
But yeah, we'll be there in October, so that's the plan.
Oh, so you might get to see the whales.
Oh, there you go. Something else we have to to look at.
Yeah, so I don't think the humpback whales you can see sort of October, November, December, but not
February.
not February. So I did want to see the humpback whales, but and I also wanted to put Shep in a cage with a great white shark, but
which I have no desire to do.
Did I hear that correctly? She wants you in the cage with a great white shark.
I think you did hear correctly, Scott. Yeah, it's just making sure the insurance premiums are paid up before we go.
Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to share this information with us. After hearing this, I think I'm probably more interested than even before about visiting the Maldives. So appreciate you spending the time with us.
Well, it's been fabulous to talk to you. And if you love snorkeling, you won't find a better place, I'm sure. You'll thoroughly enjoy it.
So it might trump St. John on our list then, huh?
There you go.
Because we even have,
You won't know until you go.
That's true. We have to test it out. Research, right? For research.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, I think it would make sense to combine this trip with some other countries in Southeast Asia.
Yes, I think we could definitely do that. But since I didn't even know how we would make this trip from the US before the interview, and I think that was obvious, I used Google Flights to look up some of the routes. And it looks like for us taking Qatar Airways to and from the city of Doha through either Dallas or Miami. Then after that, it's like 4.5 hours from Doha to Malé. That's probably going to be our best bet. So we can easily take a nonstop to either Miami or Dallas. And so the trip total for us would be like 25 to 29 hours on the low end. So I did pick the low end. And then, of course, you could go up there with longer layovers, etc. And though you could use points if you had them for some of the segments, and then that would help reduce the cost as well. And then also, Qatar Airways has a stopover program in Doha where you can stay an extra 1 to 4 days and get a really great deal from like $14 per night on like 4 and 5 star hotels, some food, some activities, because they really want you to do that stopover and experience Doha, experience their country, and just inject some money into tourism, right? And not just into their economy and not just at the airport. So that would be definitely worth looking into to add a couple of days. That would give you another destination to check off your bucket list and then also to break up the trip. But as we talked about this, of course, Scott, you said, no, but not on the way, right? Because you're thinking in your brain, I want to get to the Maldives. And so then you're not really enjoying that part of the trip. And it's just another 4.5 hours. I guess it would be different if it was like, okay, we've got another 12 hours to go, right? And so I think maybe looking at that maybe as an option on the way back would be a great way, because that's a really inexpensive way to experience. And so what I'm going to do, I'll put a link to that in the show notes because that might be helpful too, or just a couple of things that I found, especially with Qatar, that you could see. But so that's not really that bad, right? So we go basically to a hub airport, Dallas or Miami, take that really long flight, and then we have just one more leg. So it's not really as cumbersome as I thought it would be.
Yeah. And when you were looking at flight prices, you kind of said out loud, that's not quite as bad as I thought it would be.
So it wasn't cheap. And I will say that. And this was like, they showed, right, was like booking all of it together. So it was anywhere from like $1,900 to $2,400. Like that would just be like probably your basic economy main cabin. But like I mentioned, I really feel like you could then use points from some of the, the credit card miles and things like that we have, because Qatar American was the other airline that you would have to use. For us is ones that it's very easy to transfer those from credit cards and use those points. So I think you could work it that way a little bit to reduce that cost. And I will point out, like when we went to St. John last year, the flights from Atlanta were $1,700 just to go from Atlanta to St. John. So you just have to think about it, relatively speaking. It's a lot of money, but relatively speaking, it's not that big of a price difference. And you're going, halfway around the world.
I think for a 25 to 29 hour flight, I'm not doing that in economy. Right.
So definitely we'll be saving our points for that and looking at the best option. But logistically, it's not as bad as I thought it would be.
And while we're talking about price, we didn't actually talk about the actual cost with Ali and Shep. It sounds like this is one of the places that you're going to need to budget ahead of time for. Without doing much research, I did find all-inclusive in the high season villa with a private pool over the water. We were talking $10,000 to $12,000 for 2 people for a week. And this was at a reuse, so I can only imagine the price probably goes up from there. But, it kind of does give you at least an idea of pricing.
And like they mentioned, there's all kinds of resorts. And I imagine same thing. If you have hotel points that you've saved up for a particular hotel or through credit card points, that might be an option as well to offset the cost.
And then much like our Aruba trip that we did the interview on, the best times to visit are December through April. So you want to put that into your planning. Just remember is with some of these island destinations, things like that, you do have to often consider, are they in a hurricane or a monsoon or a cyclone belt that you need to be aware of when you're planning your trip? And so in this case, December through April is the best time to visit the Maldives.
But it sounds like that even if you do go in another season where it might have some rain showers, they would be passing possibly. And so just looking at the weather and stuff like that, because we've also been to the Caribbean during hurricane season and it's been fine. So it's a possibility.
Yeah. And there's, got to look it up and see, but usually there's those, I think they're called shoulder seasons where, there might be a risk of that, but normally it's just standard good weather and a good time to visit. Like you said, you could run into a case where, you have some downpours, things like that you have to consider. But yet the pricing would be a little bit better during those seasons because it's not the peak.
Yeah, that's true. And also the fact that 7 days is the ideal amount of time. But again, not considering travel time, right? So because you wouldn't really have enough time. Like if you're going to be traveling for a whole day on each end, right? And jet lag. And of course, we'll want to use our jet lag procedure, but making sure that you have that full week to, really enjoy your time and you're not rushed and adjusting and, detoxing from the phone and all those things too, right?
Now, speaking of detoxing from the phone, I loved the sign that Shep was talking about at the Constance Mufishi. No shoes, no news. Sometimes you really just need that getaway trip where you just reconnect, you recharge, and you just shut everything out. And I love that sign.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Maybe we should get that for the house.
Maybe so. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that here. So let's talk a little bit about food. This isn't like any of the other places that we have visited where you might stay at a resort and then venture out to nearby restaurants, as they indicated. So, and even when we did an all-inclusive on our very first trip to the Riviera Maya in Mexico, we ventured out on a jet ski excursion in Cancun and then to eat and shop afterwards. So just knowing that, right? So then you're going to do that half board depending on how much you like to eat. Or like they mentioned, you might just want to say, okay, I know that this vacation is completely paid for and I'm not having to worry about, what this and that cost, and just doing the all-inclusive, taking that into consideration when you're planning.
Yeah. And I did look at some of the, resorts and they're not, all-inclusive. So that's not the thing that they're offering in these islands. So you do have to do a little bit of hunting to find those all-inclusive packages.
Yeah, and I think that's personal preference too. So I guess that's good to know that you can kind of choose it both ways. But I did like, though, that Shep talked about being able to, at the one resort, taking bikes and to explore the little part of the island where they were before breakfast. And so I would definitely like to look into somewhere that had, bikes so that you can just feel like you can see a little bit more, you get a little bit of exercise, and then, enjoy the food.
And Ali was right on that. It's probably best to at least give yourself the appearance of getting a little exercise every day if you're going to be, laying around and be waited on hand and foot by your host. So I think that's probably a great suggestion.
Yeah. And I also think one of my favorite parts is where Ali was talking about being able to just snorkel straight off your villa. And so she actually sent us a video with some sea life, right outside there. So we'll definitely have to share that too.
So I'm looking at this. There are a couple of different ways, and Shep talked about this in terms of pricing and what you're looking for in a destination. But there's a couple of different ways to get there, either through boat or seaplane. And I think that's part of deciding which resort you're going to want to visit. which is how you're going to get there from the airport. So we've talked about that flight of getting from, where we are to the airport, but you're not there quite yet when you get to the airport. You still got to make it to the atoll where you're going to be staying. And so, whether you do that through a boat, and I don't know if it's like, Ali said a speedboat. I'm thinking this is not like your cat ferry type thing. I don't know, it could be. Or if you're taking a seaplane. And I looked at some of the pictures of the seaplanes, and that looks like an amazing way to just get to your next spot.
Yeah, I would be super excited about that. And I'm like you mentioned that you've never been on a seaplane, and I haven't either. So again, just getting to go somewhere like this and then having new experiences on top of seeing a new destination.
Hey, when do you think we can plan a trip to Southeast Asia? If we go that far, we might as well include Australia and New Zealand. And it really seems like it's going to be a long trip. Might be a multi-month if I'm looking at this correctly. If you've visited the Maldives before and have any useful information to help us plan the trip, please send me an email, scott@sunshinetravelers.com. Also, if you have a favorite resort in the Maldives, we want to know that as well. We always love hearing about your travel experiences.
When we are booking our trips, we like to use booking.com because you can choose from over 1 million properties worldwide, from cozy country homes to sleek city apartments. You can find the best deals with their price match promise. Enjoy great stays at lower cost. And because flexibility matters, you can book with confidence, knowing that you can cancel with ease. And you can make informed choices with millions of reviews from fellow travelers. Start your adventure now and visit sunshinetravelers.com/booking to book your perfect stay. Using this affiliate link to book your travel helps support our podcast and allows us to continue to provide new content each week. Please consider using this link when booking your next travel. There is no extra cost to you, and we are compensated through the affiliate.
We hope you enjoyed this episode and will find some inspiration to help you with your travel journeys. Please consider going on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. The more 5-star reviews we have, the more likely we are to be featured and discovered by others. Make sure to follow or subscribe to our podcast to be notified of new episodes as they are released. You can also find us on Instagram as Sunshine Travelers Podcast. Remember, that is travelers with 1 L. Most importantly, share it with your friends to help them catch the travel bug. You never know, they may become your greatest travel companion.